We cannot find approval from the eyes of other, only from our own eyes. And when we can find approval in ourself from our own eyes, that is an incredible stage of well-being. When we're observing, many times we're often saying, I'm better than that person. And he said, the question, I think it's powerful. How do you know? How do you know you're better than that person? If I showed you some of your former lives, you might not be so pleased with yourself. But I'm almost cracking up because I know that's true, even though I don't know it's true. I know it's true because I wasn't always this sweet, lovable, adorable guy. You're listening to the Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. This episode is titled Conversations with a Sorcerer, Life Lessons, the Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Part 2. I know it's a long title, but hey, this is a continuation of the last episode. So in the last episode, we talked about life lessons. We talked about letting go of things. We talked about people transitioning, as you may call dying. And in this episode, it's a continuation of the last. I want to pick up and dig into where we left off. Okay, so in the introduction, I talked about things we talked about in the last episode is about learning your life lessons, the good, bad, and the ugly. So we talked about people transitioning in the last episode, and many people won't let go of their feelings and their emotions and different things, and they hurt themselves. And he went on to say in this conversation is that when people transition, they have to leave the body and they go through a process. And he says, you also have to go through a process. As they are going through their process, you have to go through your process. Now, in the last episode also, we talked about people going to therapy. And he said, even though I'm going to interject here a little bit. When people get grief counseling, it's more for like guidance than anything else, but the grief counselor cannot heal the person going through the grief. And Don Xavier went on to say, no one can assist you as you're going through your process because you are you and you know how you're processing what's happening inside of yourself. So even though people can be a springboard, a sounding board, or they might give us perspective, no one can heal us because we can only heal ourselves, and especially if we're getting outside assistance from the guidance or assistance from the person giving it to us. And he went on to say his words, and I've seen this to be true, there comes a point in life when we have to say, I have to let that go. Enough. We're all going to die, but we're eternal beings. And I've seen that in him over the years, and that many people, even around him, they might get into a lot of different grief, transition of their pets, their animals, their companions, their loved ones, whatever. I have never in 28 years ever seen him be grief-stricken about the passing of anyone or anything, ever, not one time. And I tell you that because he walks his talk with that. And that's what I'm endeavoring to learn and am learning. And I've made a lot of progress over the years is, hey, it just is what it is. We're all on that journey home. We're all, an example that I've used before that I got from him, we're all on that train. Some people at the front of the car, some people at the back of the car, but we're all headed to the same place and we are all headed home. So I recognize that truism. And when people transition, I can be sad for a bit, but you know what? I let it go because I know, hey, why be sad? I'm following you. I'm not far behind you, whether it be 10, 20, 30 years, whatever it might be. That's a short amount of time on this planet. I'm not far behind you. And then he went on to say that a lot of times people want to beat themselves up even more when something happens to other people around them or themselves. And that's when he went into something I alluded to in the last episode. is many times people go to therapy to find someone to fix you, but no one can fix you. And he said, I and other people can guide you, but no one can fix you. And then he said, it was really interesting here, which is along the secondary gain I talked about in the transformational takeaway in the last episode. He went on to say, no one can fix you, heal you, if you don't want to be fixed and healed. Ponder that. No one can fix you or heal you if you don't want to be fixed or healed. When I say fixed, just a colloquial word, I mean to be fixed would imply that you're broken, and you're not broken. We are all operational systems. We are all, systems of energy. But I think you may know what I mean, meaning we're not getting the outcome that we want. There's something broken with me. I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. And we just are who we are. We're a product of our experiences. But we have to heal. Now, as I did say again, I want to just be very careful with what I'm saying here. I am not dissuading you from going to therapy. I mean this with a lot of kindness, respect, and a lot of humbleness. Many people, even listening, they don't have the guidance that I've had working with a shaman to have, I would say, a guide. So many times we go to therapy because we need a guide. And I would say that's great if it helps you in that kind of way. And the person can be a sounding board and be a guide and ask you questions and different things. But just be mindful is that you will not heal until you let go of the past and recognize, hey, it's all a lesson and I have to learn my lessons. Now, do not throw rocks at me for what I'm going to say next. This is him, not me. But I'm just telling you the truth because I want to do that in these episodes. He said many times when people go to therapy, and especially when, like psychotherapy, when they start digging into your past. Many years ago, I went to an inner child workshop program, and he said to me, you can do that, but it's not a good idea. And he said, when we do things like that, we go back and we live in the past, and then we call up the painful energy from what happened many years ago into the now, and we make what happened 20, 30 years ago, that painful energy that we need to leave buried, so to speak, we bring that energy into our life now. And then he went on to say, we're not the same. And it's a truism when you really think about it. We're not the same as we were a month ago. Whatever happened a month ago is gone. The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it was, whatever happened is gone. So the good memories, speaking of good, bad, and the ugly, the good memories, you hold them. You hold them, you cherish them. The good lessons, you hold them so that you don't have to actually repeat anything the opposite of that again. You hold the good lessons as a guide in life. You hold the good lessons for future experiences in your life. Now, he went somewhere else here, and I wasn't entirely sure. Maybe it'll pop in my head as I'm sharing this with you, because as I've mentioned many times, he segues and threads and weaves things together. And the conversations that I have with him in terms of gigabytes, I think I probably have 100 gigabytes on my phone. So I never know where he's going to go or where it's going to weave. But he talked about observing people. And he said observing people is a wonderful way to learn, which, just sharing in my perspective, that's why people get such amazing results in the transformational coaching program. We're very open, even though it's a private community, we're very open with who we are as people in that community. And when people observe other people being open and vulnerable and sharing and learning and growing, they also learn to do that as a result of observing other people. So he went on to say is that when we observe people, we can learn a lot from people. When we watch people without judgments, without criticizing. He used an interesting phrase here. We then become encyclopedias. And I am assuming here, what he meant is that when we observe people without the judgments and without the criticisms, we become an encyclopedia of human experience. And we can learn from that human experience by observing, oh, this person went through this and that person went through that. And here's how to do this and here's how to do that. And here's how they got through this and here's how they got through that. But we become encyclopedias of knowledge. And he said, it's fascinating for me. And that was a comment he made. It's fascinating for me to watch people. And he says, we learn when we watch people that come from all conditions and all walks of lives. And I want to share a story here before I go into the next part of the conversation. I remember him telling me a story when he was a little boy and he was apprenticing of Don Juan in Mexico. And he saw some boys eating out of a dumpster. That's how abject poverty they were living in. And he said, he was looking at the boys and he said to Don Juan, how sad those boys are having to eat out of a dumpster. And he said, or Don Juan said, Don Xavier told me what Don Juan said. He said, Don Juan said, how arrogant of you to make that comment. Those boys are learning lessons that you will never have the opportunity to learn this lifetime. So when we're observing, we're all oftentimes as human beings, we're often judging people. And we're often doing things like, well, why are they doing that? Or why are they doing this? Or why don't they do it better? Or why don't they do it this way? I think they should do X, Y, Z. And then what many people do, I see a whole lot of this in the world. And the way that Don Xavier left this was profound to me. He says, when we're observing, many times we're often saying, I'm better than that person. And he said, the question, I think it's powerful. How do you know? How do you know you're better than that person? You might do something differently, but how do you know you're better? And where he went was, that's ego. And he said, you're not here to judge anyone for anything. You cannot judge anyone, and a better word to use there, I'm just using his colloquialisms, but you cannot evaluate someone unless you have the personal power to see them. And then he said, but then you have to apply the codes of conduct. I'm not going to share the codes of conduct in any of these episodes. They were given to me by Don Xavier. I'm just not going to share them, but basically it's personal conducts of behavior. So you think about your personal conducts of behavior. But one of the personal codes of conduct is treat all people 100%. That would be one of my personal codes of conduct. Do I always live that? Nope, but I'm working on it. And I'm mindful of treat everyone 100%, which is what, again, Don Xavier has taught me and those that work with him over the years. But when he says you cannot judge/evaluate someone unless you have the personal power, he being a shaman, he has the personal power to see their karma. He has the personal power to see their past lives. One time he and I were talking, and I was almost lamenting about how people do some really horrible things on the planet. And he said to me, he goes, if I showed you some of your former lives, you might not be so pleased with yourself. And I'm almost cracking up because I know that's true, even though I don't know it's true. I know it's true because I wasn't always this sweet, lovable, adorable guy. And I'm kidding. I'm not saying I'm that at all. But I do my best to treat people well. I'm human. I fall off the horse sometimes. Things happen. But I'm very mindful of that and cleaning up the energy. But when he said that to me, it hit home. Is that because I don't know that I was judging somebody in that conversation, but I was saying, why? Why did they hurt people? Why did they do that? And that's when he said, well, if I showed you some of your past lives, previous lives, former lives, you would not be too pleased with yourself. So if someone is not doing X, Y, Z in their life, his point, if someone is not doing X, Y, Z in their life, that is their choice. It's not your place to come tell them that they have to do it differently because that's how you would do it differently. So he went on to say I'm going to say this slowly. Think about this. We look at other people and we look at their skin color, their socioeconomics and whatever it might be. And then we say, I'm different because I'm X, Y, Z, because I'm white or I'm black or I'm male or I'm Christian or whatever it might be. And the truth is no one is any better than anyone. But he went on to say there's no difference between any of us. We are all here to learn the good, the bad, and the ugly from one another. And he went on to say also which was what I was talking about earlier. He says, when you have memory, and he doesn't mean memory just from this lifetime, he means the memory of your consciousness. When you have memory, you can see all the things that you've been through. And when you can see all the things that you've been through from all the former incarnations on this planet, there's no reason, there's no need to judge. And he went on to say, and this is going to hit home with a lot of people listening, the trolls he's talking about online, people like me that are online, I get trolls all the time. I mean, I'm hate on a lot by people that know nothing about me. They simply will troll on an ad or this, even the podcast. People will troll on it on YouTube comments and etc. And it's okay. But he said, for many of you that are worried about what other people think, the trolls. But who cares? And I've watched him say that for many years. Who cares? And he said, we cannot find approval from the eyes of other, only from our own eyes. I will repeat that. We cannot find approval from the eyes of other, only from our own eyes. And when we can find approval in ourself from our own eyes, that is an incredible stage of well-being. Ponder that. And as I've said before, he has always said the most powerful place that we can live from is a state of well-being. So when we can appreciate ourselves and have affection for ourselves and appreciate ourselves, that's all that matters, because that is well-being. He continued in the conversation. It's interesting to me, this is what he said, it's interesting to me to see people who waste their lives because they're entangled in their past, because something happened to me, poor me, or this happened to me because. And then he went on to further say, same thing. People that get entangled in their negativity because of things that other people think about them, which leads them to feel bad about themselves. They entangle in it, they bathe themselves in it, and it's all, like I said last episode, it's all energetic toxicity to bathe in the opinions of other people. And then he comes back to this conversation, and he said, and he's very loving, very, very kind. Actually, he has a great sense of humor as well. I mean, we're laughing a lot. He has an amazing sense of humor. But he goes, it's not, when people say, I'm this way because of, or I'm upset because of, or I'm sad long-term years because of, or you don't understand what happened to me. I was sexually abused, as an example, and I'm the way I am because of that. And he went on to say, quote, and I wanted to frame this in the right way, it's not because you have the power of choice. Choose wisely. Think about that. But where do most people, I'm asking you listening now, where do most people choose from? They choose from their because, which is from their past, which is not the now, and we have to choose from the now. So back to the context or content of the last conversation is we have to learn our lessons, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever they are. We have to learn the lessons, and we have to gain from those lessons so that we're not carrying the heavy load of rocks. Don Xavier often uses that as a metaphor. Many of us walk through life with a burlap bag on our shoulder, and it's full of rocks. And actually, Don Juan said that to me before I come back to the episode. I want to segue here. Don Juan said, in life, many of us, we hold all of our past. We hold all of this shit, all of this because from our past. And then we think people don't understand it. And then what we do, we carry it like a heavy bag of rocks on our shoulders, and we're walking through life going, you don't understand my past. You don't understand how bad I had it. You don't understand. I am this way because. Then what we do is we metaphorically bump into other people carrying the bags of rocks over their shoulder. And then you're bumping into other people, yelling at them, and they're yelling at you because everyone has the arrogance and the self-importance to think that their bag of rocks are any heavier than anyone else's bags of rocks. It's not true. Everyone is carrying their own bag of rocks. But the question is, carrying the bag of rocks, how does the bag of rocks affect you? You have to you have to learn, and you have to gain, and you have to grow so you can let the bag of rocks go so that you're not carrying the heavy load of rocks. Because Don Javier's words, it's taxing, it's toxic. And for many of us, it closes our heart and it makes us bitter. And then I'm going to paraphrase here, through energetics and frequency, what it does is it brings more toxicity into our lives. I want to explain that again. Think about that. So if I'm upset because XYZ happened to me in my life, this person stole money, this person did this person abused me, whatever, and I'm carrying that bag of rocks, like the burlap bag over my shoulder, and I'm getting into it, then what I'm doing is I'm bringing more toxicity into my life energetically, because by the law of attraction, that's where my energy is. And remember, you are where your attention is. That's where my energy is. And then that's because that's where my energy is, I'm attracting more of that toxicity into my life. And then we wonder why it becomes a spiral of toxicity, why nothing ever goes right, why bad things always happen to us, and over and over and over and over and over again. It's all because of choice. You know, I've seen this for a lot of years from Don Javier. In 28 years, I kid you not, I'm not exaggerating in any way, not even 1%. I've never seen him angry. I've never seen him yell at anyone. I've never seen him scream at anyone. I've never seen him belittle anyone. He most often uses what he calls his silence. He just sits in almost like a bubble of happiness all the time. And I'm laughing because it's such a blissful, peaceful place to be through observation, because I'm learning my lessons. But he often says, find yourself in a stage of happiness. And he said that stage is so valuable. And we have to let go of the trauma and the anger and the excuses and the self-pity and the fear and all these things. We have to use our intelligence to let go of the things that we do not want to let go of because we're not learning our lessons, which then keep us from the state of happiness, which then keeps us out of that peace of mind. And then he said, when we learn to do that, we learn to let go of the bag of rocks, we retain the memory. We hold the memory. And then in those areas of our life, other people stop controlling us. Other people stop bringing the toxicity into our life, which we are literally, many of us, consuming and bringing into our own life and making even more toxic. And then we attract more toxicity because of the law of attraction, and we have to let it go. And where he went into is next in the conversation was kindness. We have to be kind with ourselves and with other people. And as I say that, I ask you listening right now, how kind are you to yourself? You may think you're kind to other people, but that's not what I'm asking. How kind are you to yourself? Because if you're not kind to yourself, number one, again, the whole point of these 2 episodes, you're not learning your lessons. And if you're not learning your lessons, you're just attracting more of the lessons you don't want back into your life. And what we have to do is learn our lessons, let go of the past, be in the now, and then start resonating with a higher frequency, higher vibration, and living in peace of mind. Hopefully, this all made sense. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually only have 2 episodes in this particular part, or whatever you want to call it, of episodes, the last one and this one. But where I want to go to, as I was doing this episode, I started thinking, okay, what are my next episodes going to be about? And I'm going to start doing episodes on, are you ready? Being happy. Don Javier constantly says, find yourself in a state of happiness. Find yourself in a state of peace. Meaning, make the choices to let go of your shit to be in those states. So that being said, that's what we're going to pick up with in the next episode. But to recapitulate this episode, even though we went a little bit different direction than the last one, to recapitulate this episode and the last one, your transformational takeaways. Number one, every single thing that happens in your life is a lesson so that you can grow and evolve spiritually. Number two, let go of your past. What happened, that is not now. That was then. And if we don't let go of the past, we let the past fester and we bring more negativity into our lives. Third one, secondary gain. And ask yourself again, all the negativity that I'm having from my past, what lessons have I not learned? What am I holding on to? What do I refuse to let go of? And the fourth transformational takeaway, which we'll pick up the next episode on this, is being happy. Be happy. And I will dive a lot more into that. And a final parting comment here is this: living from your past. I was telling the coaches today, I coach my coaches on a Monday call, and my coaches coach in my groups, and I'm in the group too, but I'm always coaching my coaches. And I told the coaches about letting go of your past. That's such a nebulous concept for a lot of us. Here's an easy way to start letting go of your past. When you're feeling bad about something, think about that. Listen very carefully. When you're feeling bad about something, fear, shame, sadness, whatever it might be, that's not the now, because you're not feeling that from what happened just now. You're generally thinking about something that happened in the past. And I recognized in my own life, when I'm feeling bad about something or resentful about something or angry about something, I created all those imprints in my past. And for me to actually get into those emotions is me living in my past, which I do not want to do. I choose, I'm working on living in the now. So think about that. And I may actually add that into the next episode, but definitely we're going to start talking about happiness and how to be happy every single day. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you over on another episode. Bye-bye.